Welcome to the Circular Economy Show, where we explore the ins and outs of the circular economy by the MacArthur Foundation. And we're back from a summer break. Believe it or not, I had a beautiful tan only a few weeks ago, but it's already faded. I'm your host, Seb, and I'm joined in this episode by my co-host, Sarah.
And today we're talking about cities. We know that the circular economy is a solutions framework that can support cities to meet their climate and wider societal ambitions. But how do they do that, and how do they get started?
And in this episode, we'll be exploring a new set of tools that are designed to do exactly that. We'll be meeting the designers and creators behind those tools and hearing from some of the key actors who are hoping to utilise them. But this is a live episode of the Circular Economy Show, which means, Sarah, that anything can happen. Fortunately, I've seen the production team. They seem pretty confident that everything's going to stay live. They seem sober. But what that does mean is that you can also join in with this episode. And you can do that by making sure you post your questions and comments into those spaces on the channels we're streaming out by. So whether you're watching us on LinkedIn, YouTube or Facebook, we can gather those in and pose them to our guests at the end of the episode later on in the show. But first, Sarah, quickly remind us, we've said this episode about the circular economy and cities.
Yes.
Why should cities adopt the circular economy in the first place?
Well, we know that our urban centres are grappling with the effects of our current take, make, waste linear economy. 75% of the world's natural resources are used in cities. 50% of global solid waste production comes from cities. Cities contribute to between 60 and 80% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And given that 2/3 of us will live in cities by 2050, we can only expect that these challenges and the costs associated with them will increase over time. And that's why I like to think about cities as the front line for the circular economy transition, where we need to concentrate action. Because city governments have this really interesting role that they can play to support cities to become more thriving, livable, and resilient. And that's why they're important. They have this unique position that they can play where by embedding circular economy principles into urban policy levers, they can really help to change the way we use and manage resources in our cities so that we can eliminate waste and pollution in our cities, so that we can circulate materials in our cities and maintain their value, and regenerate natural systems in and around cities. So I think cities are pretty important when we talk about the circular economy.
And you won't mind me saying that you have a bias here, as both the cities lead at the MacArthur Foundation and as really, I like to think of you as the resident expert of the Circular Economy Show on the topic of cities and the circular economy. Regular viewers will recognise you as a formidable cities expert.
Thanks, Sue.
So, and you manage this or work and collaborate and speak to many, many cities as part of your role.
I do.
So what does success look like? What are you seeing in the Foundation's broader network that's kind of exciting?
Well, what I think is really exciting is that there are cities all around the world that are actively supporting circular economy activities. And I could talk about, like you said, I could talk about cities endlessly, but since we're at the beginning of the show and we have a lot to get through today, I'll just give you a few of my favorite examples.
That'd be really helpful.
So in New York City, they have the Donate NYC platform, which allows New Yorkers to donate and share anything from used furniture to edible food. New York City also puts on Refashion Week every year, which spotlights secondhand and sustainable fashion. Sao Paulo's Connect the Dots program is really realizing a circular vision for food. Milan's also doing great work in the food space. London has an incredible business support program. They have more than £1.8 million dedicated to circular business transformation. And cities like Toronto, Amsterdam, and Paris are doing amazing work to support sharing and repairing in their cities. Those are a few examples.
So it's fair to say that there are a lot of things beginning to happen, and there's also a lot of different entry points. You mentioned a number of different sectors within that mix.
Yeah, for sure.
And in this episode, we are going to be talking about a programme that is designed to try and help both more cities start doing some of the activities that Sarah just spoke about, and also to help cities execute on circular economy strategies and plans. And it was a collaborative project between a number of organisations. We're lucky in this episode to be joined by 4 guests who have been part of that project. Laura and Claudia from Circular Economy, Yorit from Metabolic, and Karis from ICLEI, and we'll introduce them as they join us. But first, Sarah, I wonder if you could just tell us, what was that programme exactly?
So the Circle Lab for Cities program aims to provide every city with the instruments that they need to get started on their circular development journey. It's a joint effort between ICLEI, Circle Economy, Metabolic and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and it aims to provide the methodologies and digital tools to support action planning in every city around the world.
Well, I am excited to hear more about it, and I'm really pleased now that we can say that we're being joined by Claudia from Circular Economy and Karis from ICLEI on the show. Welcome, Claudia. Welcome, Karis. Claudia, one thing that was created as part of this project, and I've practiced trying to say this name correctly, and I apologise for saying it incorrectly, so please repronunciate it. The Gambit tools. Can you briefly tell us what that is?
You did a pretty good job. And hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting us here. I am a city strategist. So as Sarah, I work with cities at Circle Economy. And for those who don't know us yet, we are an impact-driven foundation based in Amsterdam, where I'm calling from. The aim of Circular Economy is to accelerate the transition to a circular economy worldwide. And to do this, our cities team has worked with over 40 cities globally, both small and big. Some of the cities we've worked with were mentioned before, Toronto, Amsterdam. And while working with all these cities, there is one thing that became clear. A city's journey towards circularity is very complex, and city officials often do not know where to start. And besides this, there are over 10,000 cities globally and a limited amount of experts and resources to help them in this transition. This is why we created Gambit. The free digital tool that we're presenting today is a tool that is accessible to everyone online. And the name actually refers to a Japanese saying that calls for action. So this is exactly what we want, is for cities to act. So people working with city, but also city practitioners like myself, can access this tool and learn about what the circular economy is and what it can do for cities. They can explore data on materials, emissions, jobs, to see what is their baseline. So what is the current status of the circular economy in their cities. But most importantly, they can also see which tested circular solutions are most suitable to achieve circularity together with the climate goals. And this tool, for a bit of history, came to life because although we do work with many cities, we are a foundation based in Amsterdam, and we cannot reach them all. So now, thanks to this tool, we do have data for over 6,000 cities. And like this, we do hope that from now on, we can achieve a greater impact and bring the circular economy globally.
That's great. And I believe that we have a mini video which will help the audience to get a better sense of what the tool looks like. So let's play the video and have a look.
Action. At Circle Economy, we believe that the circular economy can help your city achieve its climate and sustainability goals. To help cities get started on their circular journey, we've developed Gambit, a 5-step journey where cities can learn, explore, and act towards their circular transition. First, learn about the differences between the linear and circular economy through interactive content, videos, and an e-learning track on our Circularity Academy. Then dive deeper into what the circular economy can do for cities through key figures and inspirational city-led case studies. Now you're ready to explore data for your city. With our map of over 6,000 cities, find your city and identify your areas of opportunity for circular strategies. With this information, you will be able to explore the practical solutions most relevant to your context, illustrated by case studies of cities already implementing them. To get your city started on its circular transition, visit gambit.world today.
Claudia, one of the aspects that was spoken about in the video is the Solutions Explorer. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. Again, we saw that many times for cities, the ambition, the why they want to transition to a circular economy is clear, but often they struggle with the how. So how to take actions towards the circular economy. And the Solution Explorer on Gambit has been designed to help cities relate to what is already existing, so already existing solutions so that they can learn from others. And in this Explorer function within the tool, we showcase a curated list of city-led circular case studies from all over the world. Like this, the cities can see that the transition, or at least that's the aim, that the cities can see that the transition is possible and solutions are already being implemented by others. And as you mentioned before, this tool is also the fruit of the collaboration of the Circle Lab for Cities program. So gathering the expertise of different organizations today present, Ellen MacArthur Foundation, Metabolic, ICLEI, and I think Paris is also going to tell us a bit more about it in a second. So I'll leave the floor back to you guys and we can continue.
Thanks, Claudia. So yeah, bringing Karis into the conversation now. Karis, could you maybe talk to us about how Gambit and the Circular City Actions Framework from ICLEI come together?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for the question and inviting us to the show. My name is Karis Hoffman. I'm a Circular Development Officer at the ICLEI World Secretariat, which is our head office. We are a global cities network supporting more than 2,500 cities and local governments worldwide to adopt and implement sustainable policies and programs. So the Solutions Explorer on Gambit is guided by the Circular City Actions Framework, which is a set of 5 complementary strategies and 15 sub-strategies that can be applied by cities worldwide and across different sectors to work towards a more circular system. We call these 5 strategies the 5 Rs. Which are rethink, regenerate, reduce, reuse, and recover. I think you might be familiar with other approaches that center around Rs. I think it's quite a popular concept. But what really sets this framework apart is that the strategies were developed to be applicable systematically to all production, consumption, and waste management processes in the city. They address the different roles that local and regional governments can play. From public service delivery and to cooperation with local stakeholders, asset management, urban planning and regulation. And these are most effective when implemented in parallel. So to give you a flavor of the framework, we start with the strategy rethink. And this strategy is really about redesigning the system to lay the groundwork for circular interventions. As you may know, most of our economy is still following the linear economic model of take, make, waste. And breaking through this linearity requires a holistic, system-wide view to put in the right incentives and enable circular practices, as well as fostering synergies across sectors so that cities can ensure that different city departments and initiatives are working towards the same goal. So we also stress the need to work in harmony with nature, which is what the second strategy, regenerate, is all about. So we need to check that our production systems give back to nature and ensure that natural ecosystems can thrive. And this includes, first and foremost, the protection and restoration of natural ecosystems, as well as the adoption of solutions inspired by nature and the prioritization of renewable resources. So I will not go into detail to the other strategies, but essentially they follow a hierarchy to ensure that the resources are kept in the loop for longer and waste is eliminated.
As someone who's not a father of an R's framework, I feel like I'm allowed to have favourites, and I'm really like the 2 that you picked out there, Karis, in terms of rethink, because that's like going back to the beginning and really redesigning from the outset, and regenerate. Like, what's the goal? Like, positive impacts on nature as an outcome of our activity, as our economic activity, feels like a really powerful goal to me. ICLEI, of course, works directly. You produce insights, you produce frameworks, like the one you just described to us. and then you also work very directly with cities in various programs. How do you go about translating what you kind of just described, rethink, regenerate, into the way in which you work with cities?
We co-developed this framework together with Circular Economy, Metabolic and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And the idea was to introduce cities to the range of strategies and actions that they can use to work towards circular economy at the local level. And as you were saying beforehand, this is a building block of the greater collaboration between our 4 organizations, the Circular Lab for Cities program, where we put our collective expertise together to support cities to take the next step in their circular journey. And we're supporting cities whether they are just beginning to implement a circular economy or already well advanced. So we see that the circular economy really offers great benefits for cities, ranging from reduced greenhouse gas emissions and lower waste management costs to local value creation. But we have seen that planning can be very difficult for the circular economy, as many city departments actually need to work together with stakeholders to collaborate on these new circular solutions. So the aim of the Circular Lab for Cities program is really to facilitate this process. And over the last year, we have been working with 11 different cities and local governments across 5 world regions. So from the United States, South America, Africa to East and Southeast Asia. They have joined the program as pilot cities, and they're applying the framework and the tools developed in the program to their city to explore how the circular economy can really help them to achieve their city's goals. And these tools are therefore tried and tested to be applicable and useful for cities that face very different local contexts. So ICLEI's role here has been to really pilot these tools with the cities. And we worked across city departments to identify the priority sectors for cities where they can really benefit from applying circular approaches. So we looked at food systems, we looked at mobility systems, and conducted gap analysis with the cities in these selected sectors. And they then used the tools to explore best practice examples that were then tried in other contexts that are similar to them, and then they could bring what was already tried and tested in these contexts to their context and really see how they can use the learnings from other cities. So this is what the tools provide, and then we've collaborated to create this gap analysis and then look for the solutions that they can really implement in their city. And the outcome of these of this piloting are action-oriented and tailored circular roadmaps for each city. So this will enable them to then take the next step towards circularity in their city. So this is what we'll also be hearing very soon from the city of Bogor. So I'll hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Karis. Like, there is something about the circular economy in cities, I'm sure you can speak to this as well, Sarah, of like, it feels like there are a number of organisations identifying, like ICLEI, like Circular Economy, like the MacArthur Foundation, like Metabolic, they're identifying it as a very relevant strategic initiative that a city ought to launch. At the same time, it feels like there's demand for that kind of solution from cities to meet the ambitions and goals that they themselves are setting, a bit to your introduction, Sarah.
Yep.
So let's hear from an actual city. Karis and Claudia, thank you so much. We will come back to you at the end of the show. And just a reminder to our audience that if you have questions for Karis and Claudia, you can ask those in the comments features and we will have them back at the end of the show to put them on the spot again. But in the meantime, let's hear from a city that is working on the circular economy and is using the tool. So I was able to catch up with Febi Lestari, who's the head of spatial planning and environment in the city of Bogor in Indonesia. And I want to know why the city is adopting circular economy and how tools like this can help. Thank you so much for joining us on the Circular Economy show. My first question is, why has the city of Bogor decided to make circular economy such a priority?
Hai Chef, terima kasih atas kesempatannya. Mungkin saya akan menjawab bahwa memang Kota Bogor adalah salah satu kota jasa yang sebagian besar memang berfokus pada perdagangan dan jasa di segala sektor. Dan pandemi ini memang memberikan efek yang cukup besar bagi seluruh kota di dunia, salah satunya adalah di Kota Bogor. Bagaimana pada tahun atau awal pandemi itu Kota Bogor mengalami laju pertumbuhan ekonomi di angka minus 0,53%, sehingga memang ketika kita mendapatkan program sirkular ekonomi ini menjadi salah satu cara bagaimana kita dapat memulihkan ekonomi kita dengan cepat dan dapat juga memberikan dampak baik bagi masyarakat maupun bagi lingkungan, sehingga kita memilih program ini untuk dapat disebarluaskan dan menjadi salah satu program prioritas di Kota Bogor.
And so how do you start?
Kita memulai itu dimulai dengan adanya kerjasama dari ICLEI, sehingga awalnya kita tidak mengenal apa itu circular economy, dan mungkin gerakan ini sudah dimulai di masyarakat tapi dalam batasan yang sangat kecil, dalam skala kecil dan dalam skala swadaya, sehingga kita melakukan kerjasama ini dan membuka peluang kerjasama dalam skala besar.
And in this episode of the Circular Economy Show, we're talking about these tools that have been produced by actors like ICLEI and Circular Economy as part of this project. What makes these tools so useful for the city of Bogor?
Program ini memberikan ide kepada Kota Bogor bagaimana mengenal apa itu circular economy, mulai dari penggunaan sumber daya sampai dengan pengelolaan sampah. Data-data apa saja yang digunakan, cerita dari kota di berbagai negara, dan program yang ditawarkan akan menjadi contoh yang baik yang bisa direplikasi di Kota Bogor. Pada saat pelatihan, mungkin hanya berfokus pada beberapa komunitas saja, tapi untuk kedepannya mungkin bisa lebih ditingkatkan dalam jumlah dan skala yang lebih besar lagi.
So that was Febi Lestari from the city of Bogor in Indonesia, sharing a bit about her experience. And just in case you were wondering, we had a translator. I don't understand Indonesian. And I guess if we asked many different cities those same questions, we'd get almost a different story per city.
Yeah,
and that feels like a very timely moment to almost look beyond the initial tools that we're exploring there with Claudia and with Karis, and bring in Jorrit and Laura, Jorrit from Metabolic and Laura from Circle Economy. And welcome both to the Circle Economy show. Laura, I wonder if we could start with you. From what I understand, this is just what we sort of explored a bit in that video, and with Claudia, is just the beginning of Gambit World. I'll be able to say it properly before the end of the show. Gambit World. So can you tell us a little bit about the wider context in which it sits?
Definitely, I can. And thanks for inviting us here. And it's so nice also to see Febi, who was a part of our pilot program here in the show. I'm Laura. I'm the program manager of Circle Lab for Cities and digital lead at Circle Economy. And we realized the same problem you were just having with Febi, like the inability to talk to each other directly, is something that we're going to face all across the world with the kind of ambitions we have. Because we're trying to change and really transition the circular economy, or bring the circular economy to the world. But we're facing a lot of challenges in doing that. Different languages, different contexts, different types of cities. But we have great ambitions to reach all of them. So our digital team at Circle Economy is from all over the world. We're from Tahiti, Mauritius, the US, Holland, and we will not stop until we reach all of the nations and all of the cities out there, and as well as all of the businesses with the right insights and digital tools to help transition. So for cities that we've reached with Gambit World, because it's especially focused on cities that are just getting started with circular economy, and cities that want to move ahead, we've developed assessments for them to find out the lowest hanging fruit in terms of policies, training, and the circular strategies that they can use to really become fully circular. And similar to that, we'll work on different tools for nations and for businesses as well to move ahead. So on gambit.world, you can find links to actually sign up and continue the journey for your city and really move to reach the climate goals together.
That's great. Thanks, Laura. And really great to hear as well the diversity of the workforce at Circle Economy, which I'm sure has only added to the development of Gambit World. It's really great to be joined by another colleague who has helped to develop this project, Jorrit from Metabolic. Jorrit, in terms of Gambit and the Circular City Actions Framework, that's not the end, right? There's more. Can you talk to us a little bit maybe about what's coming next?
Yes, I certainly can. And also thanks for having me, and great to be here. I'm a cities consultant at Metabolic. We are a consultant and venture builder, also based in Amsterdam. So we're neighbors to circular economy, or circular economy. We tackle global sustainability challenges and accelerate the transition to the circular economy. And we do that through systems thinking, data science, and innovation. And as part of the Circular for Cities program, together with Circle, Economy and ICLEI, we've been developing ACT. And it's a platform that helps cities achieve their goals and activate their innovation ecosystems. So ACT is really all about that next step in the journey they're having. So how do we achieve joint action through towards these shared goals?
And if I was a city government, this would all sound amazing to me. I know I'm biased, Seb has already said that. But as a city government, this sounds really exciting. If I were to engage with ACT, what could I expect to kind of see? Like, what would that look like? And when is it going to be launched?
Yeah, sure. So ACT is a platform that really helps and supports city officials in setting up open innovation challenges and then assessing different submissions that work towards these circularity city goals. The platform's interactive dashboard shows how different solutions, providers such as ventures or entrepreneurs or even private citizens, can help and contribute together towards these goals, as well as it assesses their circularity and impact realization potential. So it really enables cities to identify high potential solutions and activate their private innovation ecosystems within that city. And on the other side, the platform also allows applicants who are submitting to these innovation challenges to really gain insight into their own impact and also communicate infrastructure needs they might have to the city. We're currently user testing the tool, and we aim to launch in 2023. So we'll definitely keep you up to date when that's happening, and happy to share more about it then.
Brilliant. It sounds like a fantastic tool to help to crowdsource ideas and innovators in the space to help to solve some of the biggest challenges that our cities face. Thank you so much, Jorrit. It was great to hear about ACT.
And what a whirlwind this episode has been in terms of the things we've explored. If I can invite Claudia and Karis turn their cameras back on. We do have a few questions that have popped up. I have one question I kind of have that sort of sums up some of the audience's questions. It's probably slightly cheeky of me to ask this question. And I wonder if it's one for you, Claudia. When you're speaking with the cities that you work with, are there priority actions? Are there things that are better to start with when it comes to adopting circular economy or trying to implement circular economy in your city?
Well, as we said before, initiating the circular transition in cities is a complex task. But let's say if we had to suggest like 3 things to focus on to start with, we often talk with cities to create a baseline assessment. So understand what is the current status of the circular economy. This could be a first step. Basically, like this, you are kind of understanding the starting point, so you can prioritize sectors to focus on or identify very impactful key points for intervention. Then I would say connecting people is crucial. Cities cannot make this transition alone. Everyone has a role to play. And this is why cities should connect and co-develop interventions with all stakeholders. Because at the end, the stakeholders are those that are going to implement the actions that cities want to see in their cities, being the business community or academia or citizens organizations. Everyone should participate. And maybe lastly, developing a clear roadmap is a good thing to do, so that all city stakeholders can act upon it. And in a roadmap, we have always seen, or a strategy, depending on how cities call this kind of thing, is a way to basically define where cities want to go, what's the end goal, and which actions they will take to get there. So in a strategy or roadmap, we see how cities can define roles and responsibilities of themselves as city government, but also others, and define a timeline for action. And when this becomes clear, it's also easier to look for ways to finance the transition, which is always tricky at the local government level.
I feel like I've heard you say a few times, Sarah, about that value of starting with a baseline or working out what already exists within a city in terms of different stakeholders.
Yeah, for sure. I think in the absence of a baseline and the resources to do that, or a circular economy strategy, roadmap or action plan, I think just mapping the activities that are currently happening in your city and all the different stakeholders involved paints a picture of what's already happening and what you can kind of build from, and allows you to kind of harness the energy that's already happening in your city, and to use a phrase that Laura used, to capture some low-hanging fruits. And to build from there. There's another interesting question here about the different ways that, or entry points for circular economy in different geographies and regions of the world. And so maybe, Jorrit, if you could talk to us a little bit from your experience about interactions with the circular economy from a developing world perspective compared to a developing world perspective, and what that might look like?
Yes, sure. And maybe also Laura can add to that from her piloting also all over the world with we've been working over in the Circular for Cities program. I think as a starting point, kind of like in more like a developed world perspective, it starts also a lot with businesses that are interested in creating new circular business cases that are starting to think about that and are trying to get started with that. And that's also sometimes the interaction that city seeks. So much more from that innovation perspective and linking with different businesses and trying to create a circular sector from there. While I think from a developing world perspective, there is also that from kind of like the startup scene sometimes where there's really good people already working on that, and that can also collaborate with cities. But I think there's also a lot of kind of like industry that we wouldn't necessarily link to the circular economy yet, but it already has a great starting point to start working on that. And by kind of like harnessing that and tying that into the circular economy actions, and that's a really good point to start with that as well, I think.
Yeah.
Like the repair economy and that kind of work.
Yeah. Repair economies are certainly very well established in developing country cities. Laura, is there anything that you want to add to that answer and that question?
No, one thing that we noticed with our pilot cities and also some of the inspiring cities out there who are really pioneering this field is that they tend to start with a particular sector that's very close to their heart. So that could be food systems, for instance, making sure that your city is really supplied with food from around the city, close by instead of far away. It could be around water, like Nairobi has been regenerating one of its biggest rivers throughout the city, and it's in that way reaching all of its citizens so they can enjoy rivers and clean rivers again. Plastics is another really interesting starting point to start from. So there's really inspiring initiatives in Lagos, for instance, in Nigeria. Textiles, again, is also one sector that's very close to a lot of citizens in cities, but also to industry there. So like a very clear starting point that's close to the heart of the city is always a very good bet.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting, what Laura and Jorrit have pointed out, is that sometimes the entry point is very value chain or sector specific, like plastics packaging, textiles and food, and sometimes it's kind of some of these more what we tend to talk about as transversal enablers for the circular economy, like business transformation or policy developments, which Claudia spoke about at the beginning.
I feel like we've got time for one more question. I also see that Karis hasn't had a question in the Q&A because I feel we may have lost you seamlessly for a moment there, Karis, but pleased to have you back. We have a question in that is, what are the bottlenecks or challenges? They also ask about the opportunities, but I almost want to zoom in on the bottlenecks or challenges that you're seeing cities in your network face. Because I guess the question people might have watching the show is, there's lots of things happening, there's lots of pilots starting, but what are the barriers or challenges to it becoming really widespread across cities, for instance? I'm not sure that Karis is still with us now. I'm starting to doubt that. I don't know, Claudia, maybe in your experience, there any headline, or Laura from the pilot program, any headline challenges or barriers that are very common, bottlenecks?
Yeah, I can take this. There are many. That's why we don't see the circular economy as being uptaken worldwide. I would say one is definitely financing. So for cities, we often see that to have such a systemic change, it always requires big investments. Also, maybe there is also a misconception. It's both true for some circular solutions, but it's also not true for others. So maybe there is both the misconception that a big investment is always needed. It's not, but in some cases it is. But there are many ways in which a lot of institutions are mobilizing towards this. The European Investment Bank and other organizations at the European level have adopted the circular economy as one of their main pillars, and funding is becoming increasingly available. And maybe another one, which is always kind of the elephant in the room, is awareness. A lot of people don't necessarily know what a circular economy is. So that's why this kind of programs, these shows, and the work that all our organizations here do is crucial, because I think the circular economy as a concept is increasingly becoming a way of solve many issues all at once. And a lot of people should know about it.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you so much to Karis, Laura and Jorrit for joining us on this episode of the Circle Me Show. It's been so great to hear about some practical initiatives that are supporting the uptake of the Circle Me worldwide in your favourite place, cities.
Yeah, my favourite place.
And thank you to you, Sarah, for once again being our kind of cities fanatic on the Circle Me Show.
Thanks for having me, Seb.
Thank you to you for watching this show on wherever you've watched us, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Make sure you subscribe or follow that channel to get notified every time we go live. The next episode of the Circle Me Show, you may have had to wait all summer for this one. The next one is next week. Members of our team have been on the Italian catwalk in Milan, exploring what the future of fashion is in a circular economy. So make sure you tune in this time next week for that episode, and we'll see you then.